Now, the next thing we're going to do is make the student aware of the various phases of learning that he or she may pass through. Now, I know what you're thinking. Joe, I've done fundamentals of instruction. I know about rote memorization and correlation. And look, that's not what I'm talking about, ladies and gents. I'm going to give you something here that is gold, absolute gold, this little tip that you're going to get here. Now, if you look up the phases of learning, right, or the stages of learning, there's 3 of them, which starts with cognitive, step number 1, which is where the student begins to understand what exactly it is that he or she needs to accomplish. Then you're going to have the second one, which is the associative, they call it, which is basically now that the student can perform the tasks that need to be performed, but they've got to be focused on them, right? They're getting there through practice, okay? They're getting there, but they're not yet at a level where they can do it without really thinking much about it. And the third one is basically the autonomous, right? So the autonomous now at this point is going to have them being able to complete tasks without 100% consciously thinking about it. Now look, all that stuff, forget about it. Right? Forget about all that stuff, because I'm going to give you the 4 steps that we use here at One Step Prep. Okay, this is what I tell my students, right? So I now understand the student's background. We've made the student-instructor barrier invisible now, right? So they feel comfortable talking with us, right? We've built rapport. They feel good talking with us. They can converse. They know that we have good knowledge, background, experience. So they feel comfortable because of the tone and the verbiage that we used initially, and now they're going to allow us to flow the knowledge to them. Now let's talk to them about the levels of learning. See, I bring up the levels of learning now on a scale of 4. It's a ladder, really, right? It's a 4-step ladder, okay? And I draw this on the board, just like you're seeing me do here. I get up in front of them, and I draw on the board for them these exact 4 steps right here. And I say, look, let me show you what's going on right here. These are the 4 phases or the 4 steps of learning that you might go through here as you progress through this training program. Can I share the first one with you? Let me share the first one with you, right? It's what I call UI. Right? Now they're looking at me, they're like, Joe, what is this guy talking about? Right? This is what they're thinking. I captured their attention. They're intrigued. What the heck is UI? All right, don't worry about it. I'm continuing on, right? Next one is CI. Okay, now they're really getting intrigued. The next one is CC. And the last one is UC. And I tell them, my objective is to bring you from right here, which is where you are today, and hopefully get you to here for the check ride, possibly there. Now, you may be looking at this and you're thinking, what is UI, CICC, and UC? Let's talk about this. These are what I like to call the different steps that your students are going to go through. UI is unconsciously incompetent. Now, I tell this to the student, look, you're unconsciously incompetent right now. Let me explain, hang on, before you get all bent out of shape, because at this point they're like, oh, this instructor is insulting me? No, right? Everything is about tone. We've already built great rapport with them, and I'm keeping their attention. Look, man, you're unconsciously incompetent right now. What that means is this: you don't know what you don't know. Let me give you an example. You see that stack of books that you got in front of you? They came in here this morning. They dropped a box of books in front of you. It's got about 10,000 pages in there. And you're probably looking at it thinking, dude, I don't even know where to start. I don't even know where to start, right? And so when I express like this to them, I say, look, I know you have 10,000 pages. You're probably looking at it thinking, I don't even know where to begin, Joe. And just the fact that I acknowledge that with them, now, right, continue to increase rapport, continue to increase the ability for them to communicate with us. Everything is just further validating the fact that that student-instructor barrier is invisible, right? We're really on a level playing field here. All right, good. So now you're unconsciously incompetent. Look, my goal today for you is I'm going to elevate you to the next step up, which is consciously incompetent, right? So instantly I've already moved you a step up. We're going in the right direction. Positive reinforcement, right? We're going in the right direction. Elevated spirits. Conscious incompetence. What does that mean? Look, now maybe a moment ago you didn't know what you didn't know, but I'm going to simplify that for you. In the course of this training program, you're going to need to know systems, you're going to need to know memory items, limitations, lights and switches, auto logic, right? So now I'm laying out exactly what it is that they need to know, and here's the next part, where they can find it. So I give them instantly what it is they need to know and the solution for where they can find the information, right? So I'm just facilitating data, and I'm telling them now that they are what we call consciously incompetent, which means at the very least now, you're not in a position where you don't know what you don't know. Now you know what you don't know. Now, you're going to get to the next level, I tell them, which is conscious competence. Eventually, you will get to a position where you are competent on the tasks that need to be performed. I give them an example, flows. You got to do your flows, right? Eventually, you're going to get to a position where you can run flows, overhead panel, top to bottom, left to right, right? You're going to be able to go through the main instrument panel, down the center pedestal. You're going to run all your flows competently, but you have to be consciously thinking about them, right? This would be the equivalent of the associative phase of learning. But I don't use big words like this, man. This is what I'm saying. You got to really simplify it, let the students understand and know that you sympathize with them, right? You're under stress, you're in training. I get it, man. I get it, right? So let's just simplify it, right? Consciously competent. Now, here's the deal with this, okay? This is the equivalent, I give him an example. This is the equivalent of being a 4, 5, 6-year-old kid. You're tying your shoe, you're tying a great knot. But man, if mom or dad comes through the door and says, hey, what do you want for lunch? You're like, don't talk to me right now because I'm trying to tie my shoe. You see what I'm saying? So this is that level where you can perform a task 100%. However, any outside distraction hinders your ability to perform that task, right? Now, later on, we get to a level of what we call unconscious competence, okay? And unconscious competence basically means exactly what it sounds like. You are unconsciously competent. You can perform tasks competently while not having to think about them. Now you can tie your shoe, right? Chew gum, talk about lunch, dinner, whatever, all at the same time. And ultimately, I tell them, with experience and repetition, you will be here. My objective, at the very least, in this training program is to get you to a level of conscious competence. Your instructors and your examiner need to see that you can perform the tasks to the standards, and whether you're doing it consciously or unconsciously, it's kind of difficult to tell, but as long as you're doing it correctly, that's what matters for this training program, for your success, right? Now later on, and it may be possible, depending on their background, that they get to this level of unconscious competence in the training course itself. It's possible they get there, and that would be awesome. Once they understand these 4 levels of competence, I take them back to this 3rd step right here, right? And the reason I take them here, particularly for those that are charter background, corporate, Part 91, Part 135, they never parked at a jet bridge, never had to deal with a dispatcher, right? Never had to deal with a dynamic environment, many passengers, flight attendants, maintenance delays, etc. And even for those that are low time, low experience, if they have never parked at a jet bridge, this is of huge importance right here. Now, why do I say that? Because distractions on the ground are just a part of the deal, right? Because let me give you an example. Throughout the pushback sequence, and I'm going to tell them this is all on day 1 still, right? Look, let me just tell you what's going to happen, right? When you're out doing your flows, as you're doing your cockpit setup, okay, your flows, your pre-flight, etc., you're going to get distractions in the form of flight attendant, okay? Then you're going to get baggage handler. Then you're going to get gate agent. You're going to get dispatcher. You're going to get maintenance personnel, right? You're going to get the fuelers. And I draw all these little stick figures on the board, right? Everything here is keeping level playing field, keeping good rapport, right? Having fun, staying positive mode, right? Elevated. All these distractions are going to hinder your ability to do this cockpit setup, which is why it's incredibly important that you train your flows to a level as close as possible to unconscious competence. I need for you to get your flows to this level by the time we get to your check ride, preferably, okay? Now, how do we do that? Constant repetition. And now I'm going to move into the timeline as to how they can elevate themselves to this level once they understand the training footprint that they are about to embark on. All right, any questions on the ladder of competence? I just asked the question. No, right, normally, no questions. Okay, good. Now let me show you why this is important, right? Because there's various phases in your training now. This is what I'm telling these to the students. I'm expressing to them that they will have various phases in training where they're going to be thinking about this ladder and why I brought it up on day 1. Let me give you some examples of this. The pushback sequence, okay? Just as we said already, the pushback sequence will bring a need to elevate you to unconscious competence. You will have distractions on the ground just like we saw. Okay, in addition to that, the takeoff. Okay, all the phases of flight, takeoff phase, climb phase, right? Not so much the cruise, but later on the approach, getting vectored around, right? You're enjoying the final segment, you're clear for the approach, you need to start configuring the airplane on the landing rollout, and then certainly for the emergencies, the V1 cut in particular. Because there's two parts, right? You're gonna need to fly the airplane, and in addition to flying the airplane, you're gonna have to do call-outs, okay? And I just make this very evident to them from day one. Look, there's two parts to this right now. And usually, this can go one of three ways, right? We either have a pilot that can fly the airplane, but doesn't know the callouts, or we have a pilot that knows the callouts, but can't fly the airplane. And in a rare case, we have a pilot who can't fly and also doesn't know the callouts. Now, this is why we brought up this ladder of competence, okay? Because what could potentially happen to your students is that they get hung up on one of these two areas. They get hung up on either the flying, or they get hung up on the callouts. They get hung up on the automation, okay? They get caught up on the procedures, the SOPs, the emergency procedures. Maybe it's the QRH, how to work a QRH. Okay, they can get hung up on all these things. And so the thing is understanding that there's always two parts to it. There's a division of attention that happens. And the only way that you can divide attention is by operating on a level of unconscious competence. And so I want them to be aware of that so that they are understanding what it is that they're training for and the importance of repetition. I need them to understand that before we progress anywhere in this training program.